Good morning, I'm Samantha Simmons. Joining us for the duration of the show, Conservative Elizabeth Campbell, the leader of Kensington and Chelsea Council, and Dawn Butler, the Labour MP for Brent East. A warm welcome to you both. Great to have you on the programme. And as ever, if you'd like to join in the conversation at home, you can find us on social media at BBC London News. Now, this week, the government announced plans to speed up the removal of unsafe cladding, including setting target dates for making buildings safe and enacting tougher penalties for landlords who fail to act. Under the plans, buildings higher than 18 metres will be fixed by the end of the current Parliament. That's in 2029. The Housing Department has estimated that fixing unsafe cladding on all residential buildings over 11 metres in England will cost between £12.5 and £22.5 billion. BBC London's political editor Tim Donovan has more.
7 years after what happened at Grenfell Tower, the government says remediation needs to happen more quickly. The cladding on high-rise towers covered by its safety funding must be fixed by the end of 2029.
Without decisive action, the risks and the hardship of unsafe cladding could be with us until 2040s. This cannot go on. This plan sets out how we'll fix buildings faster, identify remaining buildings that are still at risk and ensure that residents are supported through the remediation process.
Since Grenfell, only a third of tower blocks have had their cladding fixed. Some campaigners say the new assurances go only so far.
Well, it's good in the sense that accelerated remediations means the work will be done properly. However, our problem is that the remediations are seen as partial by the insurers, who are keeping the premiums extremely high because they're not removing all the combustible material off our homes. And to give you an example, my development with 1,000 people in it, they're trying to push flammable, combustible XPS panels on our fire shaft and not removing those as part of the remediation. And that is a concrete example of why our insurance will remain high after this remediation is done.
The government says there may be thousands of buildings where unsafe cladding hasn't even yet been identified. It says it hopes to work closely with developers, but there will be extra funding for enforcement, including fines and possibly criminal action.
Well, Dawn, the estimate is up to £22 billion to fix unsafe cladding on all buildings over 11 metres tall. The government are committed to providing £5 billion of that. Where's that shortfall going to come from?
Well, I think, first of all, the commitment from the government is to be applauded. The last government dragged their feet on this issue. And so the government has committed to ensuring that this is done within this Parliament, as you said, by 2029. So once they start spending that money, then the debate and the discussion will be had in regards to the rest of the money, but the government's committed to making sure that it's done.
Yeah, but we need to know where the rest of that shortfall is going to come from. You know, who's going to be forced to pay it, what penalties there could be if they don't pay it.
Well, the builders, the remedial plans and the builders, they're going to be responsible as well. All of these people have put profit before people. They're going to have to fork out some money to ensure that these remedial plans are done. When you say have to, what pressure can be brought to bear on them? Well, the government's going to be looking at all of these organisations. First of all, there will be a sort of a deep dive into what they've done, how they've done it, where they've made money, where they've put profit over people. And it's an outrage, if you take Grenfell, for example, that 7.5 years later, nobody's been held to account, nobody's been found guilty of any wrongdoing. So, yes, the government will put the initial set of money in, and then there will be other bits of money that will be found. And how much of an issue is cladding, unsafe cladding, in your constituency in Brent East? We have a few buildings that action's already been taken. What I've found is that people have contacted me who have been unable to sell their property, and that's a big issue at the moment that I think we also need to look into. OK, thank you. Elizabeth, to you. Tell us, what responsibility does the council take for what happened at Grenfell in 2017?
Well, you know, the inquiry report came out in September, and we accepted all of the findings. We said that, you know, we failed our residents before, during and after the fire. So we take complete responsibility for everything that the inquiry found. Yeah, the inquiry found that Kensington and Chelsea showed a persistent indifference to fire safety and the needs of vulnerable residents. What have you done to change that? We've done a huge amount to change that. So as I said, the inquiry report landed on the 4th of September. We've just put in our official response. So for the last 3 months, we've been talking to residents, bereaved and survivors to make sure that our response reflected on what they felt as well. So on safety, all our sort of fire risk assessments are up to date. We spent £400 million on our buildings, on safety. We've looked at building control, emergency preparedness. I could just go through a whole list. So we haven't sat still for the last 7.5 years. And in addition to that, we've made another 35 commitments, which we will now action.
And let's point out to our viewers that you weren't in charge of the council when the fire took hold and all those people died. Since then, in 2017, have all buildings in Kensington and Chelsea been made safe?
Yeah, we don't have any buildings with ACM cladding on them. But to your point, across London, 67% of the buildings with a cladding across the country are in London. That's a huge amount. And as Dawn has said, you know, it's really worrying if you're living in one of those buildings. Number one, you've got cladding which you know to be unsafe on the outside, and apart from that, you can't sell, you can't move. So people are trapped in unsafe buildings, which is just wholly unacceptable.
Yeah, and Dawn, what is the government going to do about that?
Well, the Mayor and the government are working together and to ensure that you have the waking watch, you ensure that people are feeling safer
But what about
in their
those
buildings.
who can't resell?
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge problem. I mean, it isn't one that was created by the government. It's a problem that's created by cladding, and so it has to be looked into.
Yeah, Elizabeth, trust is a huge issue between the residents of Kensington and Chelsea and the council. Have you been able to restore trust, do you think? And what measures have you put in place to do that? And what's your evidence if that is the case?
Well, I think building trust takes time. I think the fact that we're co-designing services with residents, that everything we do, we go back to them and say, you know, is this what we should be doing, so that the result of anything we do is them and us together. But I've always said I think trust takes
7 years.
Huge amount of time.
You've had some time.
Yeah, but I think if I asked you, imagine you lost a child and then someone said to you, well, do you trust the council to do X, Y and Z? And I could say, yes, you should be able to trust us because we have 30 people on duty who are responsive to emergencies, that we've spent this on fire safety, etc., etc. But do people feel it? I'm not sure they necessarily feel it. So one of the things that we have said is that we're going to look at our culture as well as all the technical things we're doing. So not only does one have to be professional in what you do, but it's the way you deliver things, not just what you do.
Yeah, when it comes to trust, how important do you think it is for them to see justice being done? This happened in 2017. There have been no criminal prosecutions. It may be several more years before any cases are brought. Do you feel it's important for somebody to go to prison for this?
I think it's hugely important for bereaved and survivors in our community that justice is done. And certainly from us, as the council's point of view, any bit of evidence, anything we can do to help cooperate with the police, we will do.
What does justice look like to you?
Justice looks like if you've broken the law, you go to prison.
Dawn?
Yeah,
I mean, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, I think Elizabeth's doing some great work in the council now to ensure that there is trust that's being built up. But there will be some people in the council before your time who will be liable, I should imagine, for a lot of the wrongdoing, for not listening to residents when they were speaking out about feeling unsafe in their building, and also for discrediting them in this process. So I think there'll be a lot of people who will be held accountable, and probably some surprises as well.
OK, thank you for that.